Students, we're back with lesson 9.6b. Today we'll be practicing utilizing the quadratic equation and the quadratic formula to solve for x. Now remember, if you've not watched the instructional tutorial at the beginning, that might be helpful. That's lesson 9.6a in case you need to look it up. So this is what we call the quadratic formula. When I introduced it, a lot of people will sing this to Happy Birthday or Pop Goes the Weasel. The A, B, and C in this formula are connected to the A, that is the number in front of x squared, the B, which is the number in front of x, and the C, which is the constant at the end of a quadratic equation when written in general form. So the step one of this process is to always make sure that it is set equal to 0. This is so important. Don't forget this step. It won't work if you don't have it set equal to 0. Next, you need to identify the A, the B, and the C values. Last, you're going to plug in the values to the formula and solve. Let's go ahead and practice using the formula today. So to begin, step 1 said, set it equal to 0. Check. We did that. Step 2 is identify A, B, and C. A is 1, B is 11, and C is 24. Step 3, plug in the values. So we have x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared. Remember, I like to put that in parentheses always. It's just a good habit. Minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2a. Fabulous. Now we're going to go ahead and move into the simplifying part. So when simplifying, I always teach my students to do the part that's under the square root first. So we have negative 11 plus or minus the square root of whatever we get when we type that into the calculator. Let's go ahead and grab our calculator and type this in. Parenthesis 11 squared minus 4 parenthesis 1 parenthesis 24. Enter. When I typed this in, I got 25. Fantastic. Let's jump back over to our problem. And 2 times 1 is 2. We can do that in our head. The next thing I usually tell my students to do is to evaluate the square root. So you're going to want to figure out, what is that value? Well, the square root of 25 is 5. We could use the calculator, but that also happens to be one of those facts that most of us will know. Now we're to the point where it gets a little confusing because you're like, wait, there's only one equation. Where are we supposed to get 2 answers from? Well, one of the answers is found by taking negative 11 plus 5 and then dividing by 2. And the other answer is found by taking negative 11 minus 5 divided by 2. Let's go ahead and finish solving. Negative 11 plus 5 is negative 6, and negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. One of our solutions is x equals negative 3. The bottom part is going to be negative 11 minus 5, which is negative 16. Divided by 2 is negative 8. The second answer is negative 8. Now, technically speaking, we could have solved this problem by factoring because the answers are very nice. If we get a decimal, that's an indicator that we would not have been able to solve that problem by factoring. Let's move on to the next one. Solve using the quadratic formula. Step 1, set it equal to 0. Check. Step 2, determine A, B, and C. A in this case is 2, B is 7, and C is 3. Next, we want to use the quadratic formula. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. Now, as I've said before, it's very helpful if you are able to type this into your calculator, specifically the part that's under the square root. So I'm going to go over to my calculator and type that in. Remember, put that b squared term in parentheses so it doesn't accidentally give you the wrong answer. And enter. Again, we get 25. Awesome. So we get x equals negative 7 plus or minus the square root of 25 divided by 4. Next, evaluate the square root. What I mean by that is, what is the square root of 25? When I take the square root of 25, I get 5. So we have negative 7 plus or minus 5 divided by 4. This is the point in the problem where I find it's very helpful if students split it into 2 parts so they can get both of the remaining answers. We have negative 7 plus 5 divided by 4, and we have negative 7 minus 5 divided by 4. Let's evaluate the top one first. Negative 7 plus 5 is negative 2 over 4. Negative 2 over 4 is the same thing as negative 0.5 or 1/2. Evaluating the bottom equation, negative 7 minus 5 is negative 12. And negative 12 divided by 4 is going to be negative 3. Again, if you don't feel fully confident in doing this math in your head, you can always type it into the calculator. I do encourage you to always have that out. In both cases, we would have been able to solve these by factoring. However, sometimes it's just nice to use the quadratic formula. Tune back in for part C of the quadratic equations and quadratic formula to learn about some of the other types of situations that might show up. Have a great day.